Yo everyone, welcome to my predictions and breakdown of the entire UFC Fight Night Adesanya vs Imavov fight card. I'll be starting with the prelims and working my way all the way to the main event as usual. Hope you guys enjoy the video, hope everything's been going well. If you do enjoy the video, please leave a like and a comment below letting me know. And as always, timestamps are in the description and the comment section below if you'd like to skip to any fight in particular. We're going to start with the first fight of the card, which is Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwady versus Bolaji. This is a great fight to start us off with, and you know what? I'm actually going to be putting Bolaji into my confident picks list, which means I do think he wins this fight. He is quite a talented MMA fighter, especially talented on the feet, and I really do think this will cause many issues for a fighter like Al-Selwady because he's quite stiff and one-dimensional on the feet, and he will most likely struggle in the stand-up early on. I can see Bolaji landing more early, and I can see Al-Selwady reverting to what he's comfortable with, which will be trying to secure some sort of takedown and take this fight to the ground. But I really don't see it working on Oki. I think he's hard to take down. I can see Oki scrambling his way back to his feet, and because of that takedown defense and his overall well-roundedness, I honestly think he'll just be too much for Al-Selwady early on, and I honestly reckon it'll be a first or second round finish, maybe by TKO. That would be my pick. That's what I think would be on the cards. Moving on to the next fight of the card, which is Hamdy Abdelwahab versus Jamal Pogues. Now, here's something interesting about this fight and a bit about Hamdy Abdelwahab that you may not know and may not hear from other channels making predictions, but Abdelwahab was looking great in his fights, very accomplished wrestler who had wrestled in the Olympics, if that's correct, and he was doing fantastic with his stand-up game as well. Overall, a great prospect for the heavyweight division. He fought Dontel Mays, and I was honestly surprised to see a split decision because every round could have arguably gone to Hamdy, unless I'm misremembering that fight. But when you check his record now, you might see that it's been about 2.5 years since the Dontel Mays fight, and it was made a no contest. And this is all because Hamdy tested positive for an anabolic steroid called methanolone, and was serving a USADA suspension for having that in his system without disclosure. So he's now coming back to the octagon, and I'm a bit unsure of how he would look, to be honest with you, but I can tell you that the guy is an extremely technical wrestler, and if I had to compare him to Jamal Pogues, they are actually quite similar. Pogues is pretty good at securing the takedown himself, but he tends to fight at range a bit more, while Hamdy's a bit more front-footed. He likes to march forward, and he comes forward in blitzes. So this is a pretty close fight on paper, in my opinion. But if my gut says to favor one guy, I think Hamdy, with what I have seen already, will be the more talented fighter, even though both guys are quite similar. So Hamdy as the underdog is the pick, but I don't have much respect for people who take steroids in combat sports. So I will just say that. We'll add that on. Moving on to the next fight of the card, which is Bogdan Grad versus Lucas Alexander. Alright, I'm pretty sure that Bogdan Grad is a decent favorite here, and a lot of people on Tapology are favoriting Bogdan Grad to win this fight, but I think I will be taking the underdog in Lucas Alexander to win for a couple reasons. I'm noticing a clear trend in Bogdan Grad's fights, and that is that he's getting hit and caught quite a lot, way too often for my liking, but he does continue trudging forward and find finishes by pressuring his opponents and using his gas tank as a true weapon for himself here. It definitely could get him the win, there's no doubt in that, but I can just see Lucas Alexander being able to keep his distance and do damage for at least 2 of the 3 rounds in this fight. Maybe even find a finish like Tom Nolan did against Bogdan Grad when they fought on the Contender Series. Lucas is very technical, and I think the better striker of the two on the feet, especially when he dictates the range. I'm picking him to win this fight. Although Grad is dangerous and relentless, I want to choose a solid underdog opportunity here in Lucas Alexander. That's my opinion, that's my pick. Moving on to Jasmine Jasudavicius versus Mayra Silva. Dangerous fight for both girls here. I honestly think it should be a lot closer to a 50-50, and I also think that the underdog odds on Mayra Silva, if they grow wider, are pretty solid, and I might end up chucking something on that. As far as who I think wins this fight, I'd probably edge it towards Jasmine Jasudavicius, but here's the thing about that: when it comes to WMMA fights, I feel like my picks are always my picks always end up going the other way unless who I'm picking is like Eileen Perez. But irregardless, I do think Jasmine has the higher chance of winning this fight, mostly because I believe she will secure more takedowns in this fight and be able to do some solid control time. She has not been submitted in her career as far as I know, so it gives me confidence that she should be able to avoid Mayra Silva's submissions off her back, like her armbar attempts and the triangle attempts. In saying that though, I think this will be a tricky one because Mayra has the power advantage and she's a bit more of the technical striker in my opinion, but we will have to see. Jasmine Jasudavicius is the pick. Moving on to Ziam versus Mike Davis. Fantastic matchmaking here on this card overall. Both fighters here are exciting, although Mike Davis has been a lot less active due to his proneness to injuries, if I remember correctly. I will be taking the favorite in Mike Davis here, and I will be putting him in my confident picks list as well, even though he's been inactive. I just feel like he is extremely relaxed in the octagon. He's very dangerous on the feet and on the ground as well, and just has the power and strength advantage in this fight. He will most likely look to pressure with his boxing. He likes to use counter uppercuts whilst closing the distance, and he'll look to clinch and take down Ziam in this fight. Perez has been taken down and controlled by many fighters. Even in his most recent fight against Matt Frivola, he was also outstrengthed in that fight. He was taken down in that fight, and he was able to reverse some positions, but he was susceptible to a wrestler. So it's not to say that I'm completely counting out Ziam, but I do feel confident that Mike Davis has the skills to get this one done, and that's the pick. Moving on to Terrance McKinney versus Damir Hadzovic. Now, I'm picking Terrance McKinney straight away off the rip to win this one. He's in the confident picks list as well. He's an addition there. This is potentially a setup to be a bounce-back fight for Terrance McKinney, in my opinion, because the matchup is extremely winnable for him. I believe Terrance gets a finish 100% here. It'll probably end up being like a KO, TKO most likely. Damir Hadzovic is quite old. He's not too explosive. He can be outstrengthed and outmuscled in fights easily, depending on the opponent, and Terrance McKinney is that bad matchup opponent. He's an explosive type of guy from the get-go. He never goes to decision. He's won and lost fights in the UFC, but like I said, he's literally never gone to decision. He's not gone to decision one time in his career, in or outside the UFC, so he's always hunting for the finish. He's putting himself in vulnerable positions. I think we'll see a round 1 finish from Terrance McKinney, most likely a KO. So moving on to the next matchup, Shamiel Gaziev versus Thomas Peterson. Now, Shamiel the GOAT Gaziev, the old Lucas Tracy fan favorite here. It was a very disappointing performance against Rosenstruik. I can see a lot of people not trusting Gaziev anymore, Gaziev, but I'm pretty sure the odds still favor him quite heavily in this fight, and they do, as far as what I can see. I do believe he should win this fight against Peterson. The fight is only 3 rounds, when we did see a better performance against Dontel Mays with Gaziev's gas tank. Granted, though, I'm still not confident in him to beat up anyone actually decent, and I'm extremely not confident for him to win a decision on the feet without gassing out, whether it be 3 rounds or 5 rounds. I think he will outdo Peterson in this fight, and I can see it being similar to the Dontel Mays fight in how it goes. Probably a decision win, could use his grappling, could see a finish since they both have a pressure-heavy style, so could see some clashes early as well. But Gaziev's the pick, but this will be a low-level fight in my opinion. Need to see some improvement from both guys, especially in the cardio. I honestly think a 5-round fight, Merab probably beats Gaziev. If you want my honest opinion, I reckon Merab could move up versus a guy double his weight and beat him. If he just keeps the distance for a couple of rounds, maybe scores a few points early. Even without his grappling, honestly, pure cardio, I think he would beat Gaziev. So I'm done with that fight. Moving on to the next fight of the card, which is onto the main card as well. Muhammad Naimov versus Kaan Ofli. I will be going with Muhammad Naimov to get this one done over Kaan Ofli, and it's mostly because I just don't see Kaan Ofli throwing anything much in the stand-up on the feet. The guy's explosive, he's definitely athletic, but he just doesn't have the same level of talent in the stand-up that he does in his wrestling. He leaves himself open way too much, he doesn't throw enough, and against someone that usually finds at least a couple of solid shots per fight on the chin of their opponent, like a Naimov, I think he catches Kaan, and I think he ends up putting him away in this fight. Naimov, at this point, should be a level above in each avenue of the fight game, not just the stand-up. Can see him winning a decision, especially if he decides to use his grappling in this fight, which I think would work for him. But if Naimov keeps it standing, plays the stand-up game, I can see this being a relatively easy fight, potentially getting that finish on the feet. Confident picks list edition, Muhammad Naimov. Moving on to Ikram Aliskerov versus Andre Muniz. And I will talk about one thing I hate about this fight, and it's not the fight itself, it's that I keep seeing quite a bit of Ikram Aliskerov hate because of the loss to Robert Whittaker. I picked Robert Whittaker to beat Ikram Aliskerov, didn't mean I was disrespecting him, didn't mean I didn't like him, but losing to someone who's arguably in the top 3-5 best middleweights of all time, and people calling you a fraud, saying he's bad, saying he's got no chin. Ikram's still a really solid prospect, and this is an extremely favorable matchup for him, since Andre Muniz isn't known as someone who's like a marauder on the feet who throws bombs. The guy favors his grappling. He tries to work his grappling BJJ game when he's given the chance. I think Ikram will be the better wrestler in this matchup. I think he will be the more dangerous and technical striker in this matchup, and I think this win should be a good bounce back win for him, since I think he should be able to get this one done. Maybe even by TKO finish early. That's my prediction, guys. I'm moving on to Said Nurmagomedov versus Vinicius Oliveira. This card, I'm reading all these fights. This card is extremely stacked. This is a banger of a matchup as well, honestly. I would not miss this fight. Expect an absolute firefight between these two very technical and very dangerous strikers. I'm going to go run through a couple of things now with both of these guys, and what I'm going to say is that if I had to edge it to one guy who's like the more technical striker, I'd have to slightly edge it to Vinicius Oliveira, but it is very close. But with Said Nurmagomedov having the wrestling game and having the crazy ability to snatch up quick submissions like the guillotine, I feel like I have to favor him slightly to win this fight. I also think that Said Nurmagomedov is the more defensively responsible fighter, and what I mean by that is that Oliveira tends to leave himself open a lot more in exchanges. He'll leave himself off balance, or he'll be in range when he shouldn't, and a guy like Said Nurmagomedov can capitalize on that. This can also work for Oliveira since his striking comes from an unorthodox position and can be hard to read sometimes, but I'm trying to find very small favorings to pick someone here for the video. And Said also has had a close fight with Jonathan Martinez, who's a fantastic fighter, who has showed time and time again that he can beat very, very solid level competition in the UFC. Like I said, this is all nitpicky stuff. Very close one. I'll be very keen to watch how this one plays out, but I am edging this towards Said Nurmagomedov. And I'm going to move on to the next fight of the card, which is Sergey Pavlovich versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Very close fight on paper. Very close fight. I know the odds are quite in favor of Sergey Pavlovich, and I do think that in this fight, I will be siding with Sergey Pavlovich to get this one done, but let me tell you something, guys. I'm not that confident anymore. We've seen Sergey struggle with someone like a more technical and the stay-on-outside fighter like Alexander Volkov, which was his last fight, his most recent loss, and Rozenstruik can be quite technical, and he knows how to stave off hard hitters like a Tai Tuivasa, who had a fantastic performance against in his last fight. But in saying all this, I do think Sergey can get this one done, because I believe that it takes someone as technical as an Alexander Volkov to be able to do what he did to Pavlovich in their last fight. Volkov KO'd Rozenstruik as well, not too long ago as well. I believe Volkov is a level above. I hope people can really appreciate the high level of heavyweight skill that Volkov showed in that fight, because you really don't see it often. He also got robbed by Cyril Gane as of recent as well. He's shown to be a high level above these heavyweights, and I think that Rozenstruik is not at that level, and he'll be able to have to deal with getting clipped in this fight. I think he will take shots, and I really can see him getting finished by Pavlovich here. If he manages to not get finished and get this one to the distance, I could see him winning this fight, but I just think Pavlovich catches him in this one. I can see it happening. That's my pick. On to the co-main event of the evening, Shara Magomedov versus Michael Venom Page. Alright, I'm going to inform you guys, my subs, my people that are watching this video. I have picked Michael Venom Page to win every fight he has fought in since coming to the UFC. I picked him to beat Kevin Holland. He was also able to dismantle Kevin Holland on the feet in that fight. I then picked him to win a close decision on the feet or KO Ian Gary, I believe. But Ian Gary ended up wrestling and grappling MVP to win a close decision, which really showed me that he was really concerned about the stand-up game of MVP. He's very dangerous. I'll add this one on as well. Although Shara is gaining hype and he's starting to grow more fans, I really don't think the guy is that good. I honestly believe he would lose to any real grappler in the division the first time they fight him. I think that someone like a Bo Nickel would destroy him, honestly. And I know the same thing could be said for an MVP, and I'm just like being a hater right now as well. But I think that people are having a bit of a mix in underestimating MVP's stand-up game and overestimating someone like Shara Magomedov's entire fight game. And here's my overall prediction for this fight. I think there will be a little to no grappling in this fight, and I think that MVP will win a close but very clear 29-28 decision after maybe losing the first round to Shara Magomedov. I'll believe in MVP once again. Although he's quite old for the UFC at 37 years old, he still looks quite solid, and I think he's still one of the more dangerous and technical strikers in the UFC right now. So that's the pick. Moving on to the last fight of the card and the main event of the evening, Israel Adesanya versus Nasruddin Imavov. I'm super keen to watch this fight. It's only a week away, but I've been thinking about how many ways this fight could go. But before I get into who I'm picking and my breakdown of the two fighters, let's go through and see who you, the followers, subscribers, and voters of the poll picked to win this fight. And the votes are in, and you guys have chosen Israel Adesanya to defeat Nasruddin Imavov by quite an overwhelming percentage. He's a slight favorite in this matchup, so it's not super surprising, but the odds are still relatively close. As for who I'm picking to win this fight, Although Adesanya is extremely credentialed and definitely has ways he can make this a tough fight for Imavov and get the win here, I actually am leaning towards Nassourdine Imavov in this matchup, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. He's quick. He's extremely technical on the feet. He's got great footwork. I believe he will be the faster guy in the octagon as well. He's the hungrier guy. He's the younger guy. At this point in their respective careers, and the main reason I've been leaning towards Imavov to win this fight is because that he's usually willing to use his grappling in some way in his fights, and he does have a pretty solid grappling game and ability to work his way to the ground. He has showcased that ability in a few fights now, was working to take down and control Cannonier on the ground in their fight, wasn't as successful on the ground as he was on the feet on that night, but still very important to bring up, in my opinion. I actually do believe this fight will be a relatively close one on the feet. I think it will most likely get a decision as well. And if there are any close rounds or engagements, I can see Imavov wanting to pressure in and use his grappling in some way to his advantage to get some of the rounds. So I know Adesanya has good takedown defense for the most part, but later in fights, when he's more tired, it can start to relax a bit and be a bit less urgent, just like we saw in his match against Dricus du Plessis. I'm going to predict a 48-47 decision for Nassourdine Imavov in this one. And as an Israel Adesanya fan, I wouldn't mind getting this prediction wrong, of course, and seeing him win this one, but that is my prediction for the main event, guys. And that wraps up my UFC Fight Night Adesanya vs Imavov full card predictions and breakdown. Before you go, I want to let you guys know an exciting challenge, an exciting announcement. If you voters end up beating me on main event predictions by the end of 2025, I will be doing a special channel punishment. It will be decided by you, the subscribers, the viewers of the video. We'll decide exactly what that punishment will be soon, so make sure to vote on every main event poll to try and beat me in predictions. So leave a comment down below what you think I should do if I lose on main event picks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well to catch all my future predictions and future videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you guys next time.